I thought I'd pop on today and have a little chat about clairaudience. It's one of the most commonly requested considerations in mediumship to me as a teacher. A lot of people really wish that their clairaudience was more advanced than it was. And it's a strange thing because let's look at it. We have clairaudience, which means clear hearing from spirit, and we have clairvoyance, clear seeing, clairsentience, which is clear sensing, and a whole host of other clairs for taste and smell and all sorts of things. With clairsentience, you sense everything. You sense all the knowledge. It's very intuitive. And I would argue that all the others are actually clairsentience. There is just clairsentience because when you're working with the spirit world, you're sensing everything. So you are sensing the names, the words, the sounds. You are sensing what you see. That's all happening in the mind. So everything is actually clairsentience. So if you're to work on one particular area, clairaudience, then you've got to work on it in the mind because it's all being sensed in the mind clairsentiently. And some people get caught up with, I'm a clairvoyant, I'm a clairaudient, I'm a clairsentient. Doesn't really matter. You're clairsentient and that covers everything. That's your blanket. But it doesn't really matter. You can label yourself if you want to. What really matters are the results. Clairaudience, people would like to be able to hear more. So if we can accept that the hearing is in the mind, even though we do sometimes hear objectively, which means as if it's in the room, a physical sound, then if we can accept that that is a mental phenomena, then we have to work on the mind to improve our clairaudience. And there are great ways of doing this. So we can train ourselves. And there's several exercises that help. But the main thing is your awareness, becoming super aware of sound. Now, just as if you were doing remote viewing where visually you'd take your mind through to a place and explore it. Maybe you'd go into a home, maybe you would walk down the street, or you'd go into a place of work. All that you see is being shown to you in your mind, and then you're relaying it as the medium. You can do exactly the same with hearing. So you can take yourself to the sound of, let's say the seaside, and you can close your eyes and you can imagine. So we're using the mind, we're exercising the mind with our imagination, and you can perhaps hear the waves, the seagulls. Maybe you can hear people. Perhaps you can hear that sound on the stones, if it's a stony beach, for example, where the waves are pulling back into the ocean, that gravelly sound. What else can you hear? What else would you hear at the seaside? The wind. Perhaps you can hear the wind blowing. There are so many things. And if you can just keep exercising like that, that's going to really help. But to do it more extensively, perhaps take yourself in your mind, take yourself somewhere like a place of work, a factory, and try places you have never experienced before. So if you've never been inside a factory before, for example, just take your mind there in your imagination, close your eyes and listen to all the sounds. And it is about what you can not immediately hear. It's the peripheral hearing as well. So you might hear the sound of machinery in a factory, but what is beyond it? Spread that out. What is beyond the factory machinery? Can you hear the people working? Can you hear vehicles perhaps that are doing something within the factory? Can you hear someone shouting? Can you hear anything else? What could possibly be there in a factory? Machinery, people, forklift trucks, anything like that. And get familiar with the sounds. Now, you can do that. So you're remote clairaudiently, you're remote hearing instead of remote viewing. Now, that's going to be a really good one to do. The other one is to actually fine-tune the hearing. So an exercise I used to do was, when I worked at the Arthur Findlay College, at the end of the night, most or many people would go to the bar to unwind, and it would be pretty noisy. It was quite hard to have a conversation in there. But everyone was having a good time. The music was on. But I would ask the students, after they'd been at the college for a day or two, hopefully experienced the bar, to imagine themselves in the bar. It's really crowded, it's really noisy, and the music's on. And just absorb all that and make a mental note of everything that they hear. And then imagine that half the people have gone and the music has been turned off. What can they hear? Can they overhear conversations? What noises do they hear? Perhaps they can hear the sound of bottles or glasses being collected as well. There's all sorts of things that could be happening at any point. And then I would ask them to imagine that that bar is empty and they're stood there, and to invite the spirit world to step into the bar with them and to give them their name or their occupation or whatever it is they want to hear, or to speak to them or just be with them, and perhaps even put a song on the music machine that means something to them. And that, again, is a great way of training your clairaudience. It worked for many people, and we had some quite shocking results. They weren't shocking. I wasn't shocked, but the people who got the results were very shocked at the accuracy. Because you created an intention, you created a focus, and you allowed your mind to absorb the sounds and familiarise itself with those sounds. Remind them, we might know those sounds, but it's so easy to dismiss what we commonly hear. For example, let me give you an example in everyday life. If you live near a train track that's quite busy, after a while, you stop noticing the trains. And I remember this as a student living in Shepherd's Bush in London. I wasn't that far from the tube, and it was an overland part of the tube on the Metropolitan line. And you could hear it going all day, and it seemed like most of the night. It certainly started up again in the early morning. And after a while, you just didn't notice it. You wouldn't have known you were near a tube station. So it's very easy to forget or get used to sound. So for clairaudience, it's going to be very important to keep practicing. Keep practicing your mind being in places that you don't know as well as that you are familiar with. And what are the sounds like in that moment? And invite the spirit world to come and contribute to that sound. And that's really going to help. Now, the other thing is, a lot of people think clairaudience is about just the spirit talking to them as if we're having a conversation, like I'm talking to you now. But it's not. It is about sound, and it is about your hearing. And so it's going to be important to think of lots of different ways of experiencing sound. Now, I'm a sound therapist as well, and sound is very important to me in all aspects of my life. I love sound that is ASMR. So we have this where we're listening to everyday sounds, and it could be just a scratching on a table, for example, and I'm hearing the rhythm and the tone and the regularity and the depth of that sound, then that excites me. Now, okay, call me weird, that's fine, I'm weird. But I really would like you to think about with your clairaudience that not to confine yourself and think this is going to be great because I am going to be able to have conversations and it's going to be so accurate. And I've heard mediums in the past say, well, look, if you're truly clairaudient, you'll never be wrong. They don't seem to understand that it's not about verbal conversations. It's about hearing sound. And that is a very important distinction. But if you keep practicing this like remote hearing and train the mind to hear things, that's very important. Now, another one I would like to talk to you about is with clairaudience is songs. And songs convey a lot in mediumships. There can be a lot of information. One piece of information can give you lots of pieces of information and build a picture. And if I give you an example, a medium once came to me and said, I have your father here from the spirit world. I thought, oh yeah, this had better be good. You better get this right. And she said, but every time I try to get some information from him, I keep hearing the music, Glenn Miller in the Mood. And I thought, yeah, that's right, yeah. And it made a lot of sense to me because my father, like Glenn Miller, was in the RAF, and in the Second World War he flew planes. I have very strong memories of him talking about flying across the English Channel and about when he was waiting at his airbase and they would be counting all the planes back that came back across the Channel. And of course Glenn Miller crossed the English Channel but didn't make it to the other side and was never seen again. The other thing that's really interesting is that at my parents' wedding, that was their first dance, the song for their first dance. So that's another piece of evidence. He's talked about a piece of music that was important to him at a very special time in his life. Now, the other thing is, if you take it further, Glenn, on my father's side of the family, there is a cousin called Glenn. And on the other side of the family, the name Miller is a middle name. So Glenn and Miller are both family names as well. We have a lot of information just by the medium hearing the song. It isn't that it was just a favourite song. It was a favourite song, I believe. But it was the first dance at the wedding. Glenn Miller himself, the name, both of his names fit within the family. Glenn Miller was an RAF pilot who crossed the English Channel. My father was an RAF pilot who crossed the English Channel, and it was very significant to him. That was his era as well. They loved the big band music. So here we have just give me a song. So practice that. Practice that when you're connecting with spirit. Give me a song that I can hear in my mind that is going to have significance to who you are to this person in the audience or sat in front of me having a private reading. There are lots of ways to experience clairaudience, and the biggest mistake is thinking it is just going to be like a two-way verbal conversation. You know, when you go to the spirit world, you don't have vocal cords, you don't need verbal language, you have energy. And in that energy you have emotion and you have memories and lots of wonderful things that what a medium does is tap into that, attune to that, interpret it, and then transmit it. So think about that with your clairaudience and don't tie yourself down to saying I'm clairaudient, I'm clairvoyant. Yeah, you can be all of them all at once. You are ultimately clairsentient because you're sensing it. You're sensing all that information. It's just whether you're sensing it as a sound or whether you're sensing it as a visual image or scene or something, or a smell or a taste. So Yeah, lots of ways of doing it, but think about those ways of, if you want to improve your clairaudience, then start remote hearing and start thinking about songs and pieces of music and just letting your mind with the spirit, when you're connected, work with the sounds. Work with the sounds that are around you in the room as well. Is your attention drawn somewhere? That can also be another way. And if you start doing some of those things, you will find that coming into your mediumship, there is a lot more clairaudience, a lot more hearing. And with that will come a lot of information. Don't forget that with the song. How many pieces of information did we actually get from just hearing one song? It wasn't just a nice song they liked or their favourite song. There were lots and lots and lots of pieces of information. And there are other things as well, but they're kind of personal to my family, so I won't talk about them. So yes, please share your thoughts on clairaudience and developing it. If you do practice some of these exercises, have a go and write in the comments if you've got something to report that you'd like to share, because it could really help everyone and it would also consolidate your own experience. I think it's wonderful to hear from you, and I want to thank you for supporting the channel. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and hit the bell so you get notifications. But do please comment and leave a comment below. A thumbs up really helps as well. With my health, I can't sort of be posting videos every day, but I will do them as regularly as I can. And I hope this has been a little bit helpful. So thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next one.